What is the Rebbe's view on life insurance?
Well, you don't need me to tell you this, because there's an entire Sikh on life insurance, which the Rebbe spoke about, Yud Beis Tammuz, Tov Shin Yud Aleph, the first Yud Beis Tammuz of the Rebbe's in Siyas, and it's quite interesting to listen to. It's almost comical. Because the Rebbe described it like this. A person comes over to you, and he says to you, I'm your friend, and I love you, and I really care about you, and I want the best for you. And then he tells you, but I want you to know you're going to die. In other words, Yasher Koyach, thank you for the Besura Tev, because he has to get to sell you the life insurance. So the Rebbe presented the irony of life insurance, that in order to live, you have to anticipate what's going to happen, Chas v'Sholem, when there's going to be Heipech HaChayim. And when the Rebbe discussed it, he connected it to the Gemara. That the Gemara says, Maskirun le'yema misa, that when a person's having difficulty with the Yetzer Hara, so there's different eitzes. Mashchela, Beis HaMedrash, Im Evan who that nisneses, and if he's batras, he'll be nimuach, and so on. And when all else fails, the Gemara says, Maskirun le'yema misa, a person's Yetzer Hara is getting the better from him, he should think about death as a way of being rated himself to tshuva, to control his Yetzer Hara. In that sikha, the impression that you get, and I'm sure there's letters that the Rebbe understands the place of life insurance. It's just that life insurance is not a way of life. It's one of the things that we do. In other words, if the question is being asked from a point of view of Hashgacha Pratis, buying life insurance, the Rebbe doesn't see it as a heipech of emunah in the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a practical thing that we do. But in as much as things like that are concerned, the key is a person's life is not determined by his life insurance. In other words, if a person is in such a state of worry that the only thing that gives him peace is insurance, then he's not living. You have the insurance as an insurance. If chas v'shalom, something unforeseen and unforetold, but the life of a person cannot be lived with the sentiment that the life insurance is giving him protection, because it's not healthy for a person to live in fear. And life insurance is predicated on fear. So you have all insurance is predicated on fear. You have the insurance. But if the insurance becomes the definition of our security, then something basically wrong with us. I think that's a good way to explain the Rebbe's position on life insurance. I'm just going to finish this with a little maisa. There was a Yid who told a story about himself. His name was Reb Shalom Feldman. He was a big chassid. And he was a cousin of my father's, He was in 770 for many years in the 1950s in the Tafshin Yuds. And he came to the Rebbe with a question. Someone had asked him a question. This was Kfar Chabad from 60 years ago. And the question was that they could have lived at the bottom of a hill, which is where all of their Anash were living, but the air wasn't so fresh. And they could have lived on the top of the hill, which was further away from everybody else. The air was fresher, they'd be a little bit more isolated, and they were a little bit concerned of being alone for all kinds of reasons and so forth. So the Rebbe, he came into Yechidus to ask for a relative of his this question. And he tells the story after he passed away, Reb Shalom Feldman passed away. His children published a kuntris of his inyonim, about 100 pages, and I'm sure there's a lot more, and I look forward to reading it in a good show. This is a solicitation, even though the people who produced that probably are not going to see this. That he went into the Rebbe, and he said to the Rebbe that he's asking on behalf of somebody whether they should live in a safer place or in a cleaner place. So the Rebbe said it doesn't make any difference. In other words, they're equally safe. But some people are warriors. And when a person is a warrior, it's very, very difficult to overcome that worry. So when the Rebbe gave him this answer, he felt like he didn't have clarity. The Rebbe did not answer his question. He asked you to live at the bottom of the hill, top of the hill. And the Rebbe said it doesn't make a difference, but some people are. So he asked again. And the Rebbe told him again. For example, the Rebbe said, I'm not a frightened person. I'm not a man who lives in fear. But some people have fears. And because of the fears that they have, there's some things which are simply, they're inhibited. They can't do them. And he still didn't understand what the Rebbe was telling him, so he asked a third time, and this time the Rebbe said, Rebbe Sholem, what can I tell you? That's just the way it is. Now, The way I understood the Vort, what the Rebbe was saying is, it's much better to live in the fresher air, but the person who's asking that question is afraid to. And it doesn't make a difference how many times you're going to ask. They can't do it. It's beyond their ability. And I think that's the Rebbe's position on life insurance. You have to have life insurance, but you can't live in fear. And you have to live in trust. In other words, you don't have life insurance because life insurance is going to protect you. You have life insurance because you have life insurance. But life is lived on trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think that's a fair way to answer this question.